Okay, so I talk to a lot of parents, but I've never heard them talk about a new kids product the way they talk about this. This is apparently the hottest item for the holidays. Introducing Nex Playground, a new kind of game console that provides an amazingly fun way to get the whole family moving and playing right at home. Nex Playground connects families through active play while providing safe, fun, physical activity that anyone can enjoy, whether you're 3 years old or in your 90s. With the magic of AI and a built-in camera, Nex Playground detects your movement without the need for any controllers or wearables. And with safe, age-appropriate games designed with kids and families in mind, Nex Playground is the perfect way for families to bond in games. It also allows up to 4 players to join in, making it perfect for family game night. Easy to set up, simple to use, and with a wide variety of game content, including Peppa Pig, Sesame Street, and Fruit Ninja, Barbie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kung Fu Panda, and more. Coming up this holiday, you'll never run out of fun ways to play. To learn about Nex Playground, visit the website, nexplayground.com. That's Nex Playground.com. You can try out Nex Playground live at popular stores including Target, Walmart, or Best Buy. This holiday season, get Nex Playground. Play that moves you.
Are you looking for a podcast that your whole family can enjoy that asks the deep philosophical questions like, do trees fart?
If you are, then you'll love Tumble, a science podcast for kids. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Marshall. Join us as we explore stories of science discovery, from butts to animals, dinosaurs, astronomy, and everything in between.
You'll love these stories, and you'll learn something new.
Find and follow Tumble Science Podcast for Kids wherever you get your podcasts, or at sciencepodcastforkids.com.
Tailblazers, I'm Rebecca Cunningham, and this is Girl Tales, a kids podcast packed with girl power and stories where every child's voice matters. Grownups, Girl Tales is brought to you by families like yours. If you would like to hear your child's name at the top of our next episode, or if you would like me to wish them a happy birthday, head to patreon.com/Girl Tales and join a team today. Oh, and grown-ups, it's that time of year again. We are selling our personalized stories for the holidays. Cozy up with Girl Tales this holiday season by gifting your Tailblazers a personalized audio adventure where they are the hero. Choose from exciting tales like the dinosaur fossil or Underworld Rescue, or some of our wintry favorites like a snow day in freshwater, or the best holiday photo ever. Visit girltalespodcast.com/shop to order your custom story by December 18th. That's girltalespodcast.com/shop. Now on to our episode. This is Winnie the Bear Catches a Heffalump. Enjoy! When I was a kid, before I moved here to Freshwater, I lived in an apartment with my mom and 3 sisters. We had a babysitter named Grandma Nancy, who was very good at telling stories about my beloved stuffed animals, namely my purple bear, Winnie. One dark and stormy night. Oh, let me be clear. This is not a scary story, but I did feel scared for a moment. Luckily, Grandma Nancy was there to make me feel better on that dark and stormy night. I was in bed, the lights were out, and it was windy and rainy outside. I glanced over at the window and saw a shadow move across the curtain. "Grandma Nancy! Grandma Nancy!" I called out.
What is it, Rebecca?
"There's a monster outside the window."
A monster?
Grandma Nancy looked at the window and saw the shadow moving. She walked slowly over and pulled the curtain open. I peered out the window, looking everywhere for the monster. Then a gust of wind blew and it shook the tree branches.
See, dear, it's not a monster. It's just a tree shadow.
I felt foolish. It was just a silly old tree. A tree I'd seen 1,000,000 times before. How could I make that mistake?
It's all right, Rebecca. Sometimes our fears can get the best of us. But you called out for help, and that's a great thing to do when you're feeling scared. You know, this reminds me of a story.
100-Acre Wood story?
Mm-hmm. It goes like this. One day, when Rebecca Honeycomb and Winnie the Bear and Piglet were all talking together, Rebecca Honeycomb finished the mouthful she was eating and said,
I saw a heffalump today, Piglet.
What was it doing?
asked Piglet.
Just lumping along. I don't think it saw me.
I saw one once. At least I think I did, only perhaps it wasn't.
So did I, said Winnie, wondering what a heffalump was like.
They aren't seen very often,
said Rebecca Honeycomb.
Not now,
said Piglet. Not at this time of year, said Winnie. Then they all talked about something else, until it was time for Winnie and Piglet to go home. At first, as they walked along the path, which edged the 100-acre wood, they didn't say much to each other. But when they came to the stream and had helped each other across the stepping stones and were able to walk side by side again, they began to talk in a friendly way about this and that. And Piglet said,
if you see what I mean, Winnie.
And Winnie said,
It's just what I think myself, Piglet.
and Piglet said,
But on the other hand, Winnie, we must remember.
and Winnie said,
Quite true, Piglet, although I had forgotten it for the moment.
and then, just as they came to the 6 pine trees, Winnie looked round to see that nobody else was listening and said,
Piglet, I have decided something. What have you decided, Winnie?
I have decided to catch a heffalump. Winnie nodded her head several times as she said this, and waited for Piglet to say, how? Or, Winnie, you couldn't. Or something helpful of that sort, but Piglet said nothing. The fact was, Piglet was wishing that she had thought about it first.
I shall do it with a trap, and it must be a cunning trap, so you will have to help me, Piglet. Winnie, I will. How shall we do it? That's just it.
How? And then they sat down together to think it out. Winnie's first idea was that they should dig a very deep pit, and then the heffalump would come along and fall into the pit, and...
Why?
Why what?
Why would she fall in?
Winnie rubbed her nose with her paw and said that the heffalump might be walking along, humming a little song, and looking up at the sky, wondering if it would rain, and so she wouldn't see the very deep pit until she was halfway down, when it would be too late. Piglet said that this was a very good trap, but suppose it was raining already. Winnie rubbed her nose again and said that she hadn't thought of that. And then she brightened up and said that if it were raining already, the heffalump would be looking at the sky, wondering if it would clear up. And so she wouldn't see the very deep pit until she was halfway down, when it would be too late. Piglet said that now that this point had been explained, she thought it was a cunning trap. Winnie was very proud when she heard this, and she felt that the heffalump was as good as caught already. But there was just one other thing which had to be thought about, and it was this. Where should they dig the very deep pit? Piglet said that the best place would be somewhere where a heffalump was, just before she fell into it, only about a foot away.
But then she would see us digging it. Not if she was looking at the sky. She would suspect if she happened to look down,
said Winnie. She thought for a long time and then added,
It isn't as easy as I thought. I suppose that's why heffalumps hardly ever get caught. That must be it,
said Piglet.
If only I could think of something.
For she felt sure that a very clever brain could catch a heffalump if only she knew the right way to go about it.
Suppose you wanted to catch me, Piglet. How would you do it? Well, I should do it like this. I should make a trap, and I should put a jar of honey in the trap, and you would smell it, and you would go in after it, and
I would go in after it, only very carefully so as not to hurt myself, and I would get to the jar of honey, and I should lick round the edges first of all, pretending that there wasn't any more, you know, and then I should walk away and think about it a little, and then I should come back and start licking in the middle of the jar, and then...
Yes, well, never mind about that. There you would be, and there I should catch you. Now the first thing to think of is... What do heffalumps like? I should think acorns, shouldn't you? We'll get a lot of... I say, wake up, Winnie.
Winnie, who had gone into a happy dream, woke up with a start and said that honey was a much more trappy thing than acorns. Piglet didn't think so, and they were just about to argue about it when Piglet realized that if they put acorns in the trap, she would have to find the acorns. But if they put honey, then Winnie would have to give up some of her own honey. Winnie realized the very same thing at the very same time.
All right, honey.
Acorns.
Honey,
Acorns.
honey, I'll dig the pit while you go and get the honey.
Very well, said Winnie, and she stumped off. As soon as she got home, she went to the cupboard and she stood on a chair and took down a very large jar of honey from the top shelf. It had honey written on it, but just to make sure, she took off the paper cover and looked at it, and it looked just like honey. But you never can tell. I remember my aunt saying once that she had seen cheese just this color. So she put her tongue in and took a large lick. No doubt about that. It is honey right down to the bottom of the jar. Unless, of course, somebody put cheese in at the bottom just for a joke. Perhaps I had better go a little further, just in case. In case Heffalumps don't like cheese, same as me. Ah, I was right. It is honey right the way down. Having made certain of this, she took the jar back to Piglet, and Piglet looked up from the bottom of her very deep pit and said,
Got it?
Yes, but it isn't quite a full jar, and she threw it down to Piglet.
Oh, no, it isn't. Is that all you've got left?
Yes, because it was. So Piglet put the jar at the bottom of the pit and climbed out, and they went off home together.
Well, good night, Winnie. We meet at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning by the pine trees and see how many heffalumps we've got in our trap,
said Piglet when they got to Winnie's house. 6 o'clock, Piglet. And have you got any string?
No. Why do you want string?
To lead them home with.
Oh, I think heffalumps come if you whistle.
Some do and some don't. You never can tell with heffalumps. Well, good night.
Good night.
And off Piglet trotted to her house, Trespassers W, while Winnie made her preparations for bed. Some hours later, just as the night was beginning to steal away, Winnie woke up suddenly with a sinking feeling. She had had that sinking feeling before, and she knew what it meant. She was hungry. So she went to the cupboard, and she stood on a chair and reached up to the top shelf and found nothing. That's funny. I know I had a jar of honey there. A full jar, full of honey, right up to the top, and it had honey written on it, so that I should know it was honey. That's very funny. And then she began to wander up and down, wondering where it was and murmuring a murmur to herself, like this. It's very, very funny, 'cause I know I had some honey, 'cause it had a label on saying honey. A delectable full pot too, and I don't know where it's got to. No, I don't know where it's gone. Well, it's funny. She had murmured this to herself 3 times in a singing sort of way, when suddenly she remembered she had put it into the cunning trap to catch the heffalump. Bother! It all comes of trying to be kind to heffalumps. And she got back into bed. But she couldn't sleep. The more she tried to sleep, the more she couldn't. She tried counting sheep, which is sometimes a good way of getting to sleep. And as that was no good, she tried counting heffalumps. And that was worse, because every heffalump that she counted was heading straight for a pot of Winnie's honey and eating it all. For some minutes she lay there miserably, but when the 587th heffalump was licking its jaws and saying to itself, "This is very good honey. I don't know when I've tasted better," Winnie could bear it no longer. She jumped out of bed, she ran out of the house, and she ran straight to the 6 pine trees. The sun was still in bed, but there was a lightness in the sky over the 100-acre wood, which seemed to show that it was waking up and would soon be kicking off the clothes. In the half-light, the pine trees looked cold and lonely, and the very deep pit seemed deeper than it was, and Winnie's jar of honey at the bottom was something mysterious, a shape and no more. But as she got nearer to it, her nose told her that it was indeed honey, and her tongue came out and began to polish up her mouth, ready for it. "Bother," said Winnie, as she got her nose inside the jar. "A heffalump has been eating it." "Oh no, I did. I forgot." Indeed, she had eaten most of it, But there was a little left at the very bottom of the jar, and she pushed her head right in and began to lick. At the same time, at Trespassers W, Piglet woke up. As soon as she woke, she said to herself,
Oh, yes, here I go.
but she wasn't feeling very brave because of the word which was bouncing around in her brain, Heffalumps. What was a Heffalump like? Was it scary? Did it come when you whistled? And how did it come? Was it fond of pigs at all? If it was fond of pigs, did it make any difference what sort of pig? Supposing it didn't like pigs, would it make any difference if the pig had a grandmother called Trespassers Wilhelmina? She didn't know the answer to any of these questions, and she was going to see her first Heffalump in about an hour from now. Of course, Winnie would be with her, and the Heffalump might be friendlier if there were two of them. But suppose Heffalumps didn't like pigs and bears. Wouldn't it be better to pretend that she had a headache and couldn't go up to the 6 pine trees this morning? But then suppose that it was a very fine day and there was no Heffalump in the trap. Here she would be in bed all the morning, simply wasting her time for nothing. What should she do? And then she had a clever idea. She would go up very quietly to the 6 pine trees now, peep very cautiously into the trap, and see if there was a Heffalump there. And if there was, she would go back to bed. And if there wasn't, she wouldn't. So off she went. At first she thought that there wouldn't be a Heffalump in the trap. And then she thought that there would. And as she got nearer, she was sure that there would be, because she could hear it Heffalumping about like anything.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear,
said Piglet to herself. She wanted to run away, but somehow, having got so near, she felt that she must just see what a Heffalump was like. All the while, Winnie the Bear had been trying to get the honey jar off her head. The more she shook it, the more tightly it stuck.
Bother! Oh, help! Ow!
And she tried bumping it against things, but as she couldn't see what she was bumping it against, it didn't help her. And she tried to climb out of the trap, but as she could see nothing but jar and not much of that, she couldn't find her way. It was at that moment that Piglet crept to the side of the trap and looked in. When she did, Winnie lifted up her head, jar and all, and made a loud, roaring noise of sadness and despair.
help, help, a Heffalump, a horrible Heffalump, help, help, a terrible Hoffalump, hoff, hoff, a hellable horralump, hoo, hoo, a hoffable hellarump.
And she scampered off as fast as she could. She didn't stop crying and scampering until she got to Rebecca Honeycomb's house.
What's the matter, Piglet?
Asked Rebecca Honeycomb, who was just getting up.
Heffalump.
Where?
Over there.
Said Piglet, waving her paw.
What did it look like?
Like, it had the biggest head you ever saw, Rebecca Honeycomb. A great, enormous thing, like nothing. A huge, big, well, like an enormous, big nothing, like a jar.
Well, I will go and look at it. Come on,
said Rebecca Honeycomb, putting on her shoes. Piglet wasn't afraid if she had Rebecca Honeycomb with her, so off they went.
Oh, help.
I can hear it.
Ow.
Can't you?
Said Piglet as they got near.
I can hear something.
Said Rebecca Honeycomb.
There.
Isn't it awful?
Piglet held on tight to Rebecca Honeycomb's hand. Suddenly, Rebecca Honeycomb began to laugh. And she laughed, and she laughed, and she laughed. And while she was still laughing, crash went the Heffalump's head against the tree root. Smash went the jar, and out came Winnie's head. Then Piglet felt she had been so foolish. She was ashamed of herself and wanted to run straight off home and into bed. But Rebecca Honeycomb and Winnie stopped her.
Oh, I'm sorry I laughed, Piglet. It was an honest mistake thinking Winnie was a Heffalump. Isn't it nice to know it's just your friend, the silly old bear, Winnie? Not so scary after all.
I suppose you're right, Rebecca Honeycomb.
Then Piglet, Winnie, and Rebecca Honeycomb went home to have breakfast together.
Oh, Winnie. Oh, Piglet. How I do love you,
said Rebecca Honeycomb.
So do I,
said Winnie and Piglet. The end. So you see, sometimes when we're scared, our fears make things bigger and scarier than they really are. Some wind in a tree can become a monster. A bear with her head stuck in a jar becomes a heffalump. It's okay to be afraid, but it's good to check in with the people you love to get what I like to call a reality check.
A reality check. Just like Piglet got when she went to Rebecca Honeycomb.
Now off to sleep with you.
Grandma Nancy, how I do love you, I said to her.
So do I, Rebecca. Good night.
That was Winnie the Bear Catches a Heffalump, adapted from the story Winnie the Pooh by A. Milne. Written, performed, and executive produced by Rebecca Cunningham. Produced and performed by Tessa Flannery. Grownups, thanks for listening to Girl Tales with your Tailblazers. Before you go, here are some questions to help keep the conversation going with your child. What part of today's story did you enjoy the most, and why? Did you connect with a character in this story? Did you learn something new? How did you feel about this story? Did it remind you of something in your own life? We hope this sparks some fun and meaningful conversations. Girl Tales is a Cordelia Studios production. Grownups, you can get access to ad-free episodes of Girl Tales, as well as a range of other shows for the kids in your life, by subscribing to Starglow Plus on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to hear me narrate the original stories of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, or Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, head to patreon.com/girltales and join Team Sunnybrook or above. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you loved this story, share it with a friend. Oh, and remember, I believe in you.
There's a hill and a road and a path where I know you must go. Through the sun, wind, rain, or snow. But wherever you venture, you can always come home. 'Cause I trust your heart, I trust my heart, and I trust your mind, I trust my mind, and I trust the friends, I trust the friends I know you will find o'er the hill and on the road. So off you go, and remember, I believe in you.
Starglow!
Hey grown-ups, it's that time of year again. We are sipping hot cocoa, gazing at the twinkly lights, and cozying up with a good Girl Tales story. This year, why not give a gift that puts the kids, our Tailblazers, at the center of that story? You can choose from our selection of personalized audio tales at the Girl Tales shop at girltalespodcast.com/shop. Your Tailblazers will lead the adventure in stories like The Dinosaur Fossil, where they travel back to prehistoric times, and Underworld Rescue, where they work with Greek gods and goddesses to bring stories back to the world. Plus, don't miss our wintry favorites like The Missing Mitten, A Freshwater Snow Day, and much more. We will sprinkle in your child's name and special details, making them the star of the story. Oh, and all of Girl Tales Patreon members receive a 10% discount. Sign up at patreon.com/girltales to get your promo code today. Make this holiday season unforgettable. Head over to girltalespodcast.com/shop to order your personalized tale now. Hurry, this offer ends on December 18th. Here is a clip from one of our favorites, A Night in Aquanova. As Simone fell asleep, she thought about how lovely it might be to visit Aquanova. But that wasn't possible, for as far as she knew, it only existed in fairy tales. Simone opened her eyes one more time before drifting off to sleep. And as she did, she glanced at her nightlight. Her eyes followed the light's path that led to what looked like a small hole in her bedroom floor. That certainly wasn't there before. Then the small hole started to grow. It got bigger, and soon an entire tree was sprouting out of it. Then other holes started to pop up, and trees emerged from them also. Soon she was surrounded by tall, majestical trees. Birds of every color started flying over her head. When she looked up, the ceiling of her bedroom was gone. She could now see the sky, but it was no longer nighttime. The sun was shining brightly through the many branches of the trees. Simone was still in her bed, but this was no longer her bedroom.